It's finally here. REANIMAL. REANIMAL is a game that I've been looking forward to ever since I heard that it existed. As I've talked about previously, I really like Little Nightmares, like a lot. So, seeing REANIMAL and seeing some of the trailers and stuff when they were coming out, yeah, it was pretty normal. And, especially after the reception of Little Nightmares 3, this game could not have come any sooner. And I played it. I've played the game. I'm not going to show any spoilers. All of the gameplay that I recorded was from the first little part of my second playthrough, so there's nothing that isn't in the demo in this. And I'm also not going to talk about spoilers for the story until later. I'm going to talk about it as kind of just a video game first of all. But yeah, I've done a full 2 playthroughs of the game in its entirety. The first time I did it in multiplayer with my girlfriend who got me the game in the first place for Valentine's Day, which was very awesome. Then second time around, I just did it by myself, trying to get 100% completion. I also specifically wanted to pay more attention to like the audio design and stuff, because the first time we played it, I wasn't using headphones, obviously. We were playing locally, so we both needed to hear the game, obviously. But yeah, I just kind of want to talk generally about what I thought about the game, considering this is a game that I care very much about. I mean, just to start off, basically everything that Tarsier already did well in Little Nightmares, they pretty much do here as well. I think they're really good at just making, like, intriguing worlds that aren't necessarily explained, but the characters just kind of have to live in and live through. I think a big part of having the cast, quote, the cast, be bigger in this game, having 5 characters instead of just 1 or 2, is that you kind of feel that more, where like, yeah, these are kind of just, this is just a group of children and they are having to live in a absolutely hellish world. And I think something that's really cool, because with Little Nightmares, it was kind of like this other sort of pocket universe where children aren't supposed to be. It's like a nightmare world. But then with this, they kind of went about it as a world that these children are from. Everything is made for them. But you have the very obvious horror of the reanimated animals that have come to life, and some of them are being, as big as they are. And then you have the ongoing war as well. And then kind of having these two things come together, like they're both as scary as each other, and just making this absolute fucking dog shit sandwich of a fictional universe to be born into. One thing that's very different in this game, though, is the dialogue between the characters, which I remember when I played the demo, I had no idea that they would speak. So that was something that was, I wouldn't say jarring. It was, whenever it happened, I actually got very excited, because this is a very new thing for like the Tarsier formula. Because before with Little Nightmares, you had like moments of characterization, of course, and characters did have voices, but they never spoke dialogue. So this was the first time that we had these characters actually directly speaking to each other, which I thought could be absolutely huge. And I mean, obviously, you have to balance that kind of thing with a game like this, because the narrative is always ambiguous with these kinds of games, so you can't have characters just outright talking about this kind of stuff. But I thought that it would be really sick to just have just characters talking to each other for the first time in these kinds of games. I think the amount of dialogue that there was fine. I think it was okay, but I would have liked if the children just talked to each other more. And there's a video that I will link in the description of this one that shows that there's like a bunch of like cut lines, not even just from the children, but from like some of the monsters too. I kind of wish that some of that stayed in, because one thing that I think about with, especially Little Nightmares 2, it's in Little Nightmares 1 as well, but you have like these kind of like scripted moments where these characters interact in a certain way that characterize them, and it's super memorable in my mind, especially with Little Nightmares 2, because you have the relationship between Mono and Six. But this game kind of doesn't really have that outside of like super specific like little animations and moments that you like are kind of blink and you miss it. Like certain moments, I know especially later on, I'll keep it vague to avoid spoilers, but like the boy like helps the girl whenever something happens to her, and like they piggyback together, and he's the one that has to go and like interact with her and make sure she's okay. Stuff like that I think is pretty cool, but I wish that there was just more lines between them, especially with the 3 friends that you save throughout the game. They're pretty much all the same character. I mean, obviously there's like some differentiation, but just like more little conversations could have been cool. But I understand why there isn't, because I feel like the lack of dialogue kind of helps immerse you in the environment a little bit more. But speaking of the environment, this game has some incredible set pieces. I always loved Little Nightmares 1 for having this kind of condensed world where everything fits into the one sort of aesthetic while also differentiating itself, especially later on in the game. But having this like completely wide open world in REANIMAL is so sick because you get a lot of variety. You have like a lot of urban settings, you have like crumbling cities and stuff, but then you have like flooded. I remember one part where I was especially enamored was the first time we saw like the flooded grocery store area. I think it's in like the 2nd chapter of the game, maybe the 3rd. And you have like the barn area later with the pigs, with the lighthouse off to the left. I think approaching the lighthouse might be the best looking moment in the entire game. I think that area is just literally perfect. It's like a painting. And then obviously like the city at the end of the game. It's all just super sick, and I think the world is framed in a very purposeful way. One thing that I didn't properly realize the first time through, only in a few moments, but something that I especially noticed my second time playing, was that the camera is very different in this game, because with Little Nightmares, the camera is pretty much always focused on the player. It's always focused on the character, and sometimes it'll look ahead or like pull out to show like the scale of where you are, but for the most part you're in the center of the frame. But with Little Nightmares, they'll just cut the camera sometimes. Like if you turn a corner, it'll immediately just like cut to like a certain scene. I know, especially in the beginning of the game, when you see Sniffer for the first time, you enter like the bathroom area, you open the door, and the camera doesn't like pull itself into the room to show what's happening. It just hard cuts to him already like crouching halfway through a door. And I think just like those quick cuts to rooms whenever there's something like that happening is so effective compared to like slowly showing it. Obviously, I think there's not a problem with either, but I think with this game especially, it's super sick. And then it happens again when you go through the next like little hole in the wall, and it just cuts to him climbing through a dude. It just makes it way more jarring, I think. It does just feel like this game is way more cinematic. You have like moments in my head that I remember is during like the orphanage act, when there's a part where you go through a window and the boy and girl go through the window, and the camera, literally as if it was another entity in the scene, follows them through the window, and it's like a completely smooth transition from the outside to the inside, and it just looks super sick. And then I know later on in that scene when you're being chased by the spider thing that throws up the ashen babies, you have like this square spiral staircase, and the way it like pulls out from that scene to show everything happening is just so, it's just cool. I just think it's cool. I don't really have much more to say about that point. I just think the camera's cool in this game. I do think in terms of gameplay, comparing it to Little Nightmares 1 and 2, which like I know this REANIMAL is a different thing entirely, and it might be mean to compare them so much, but I think, you know, I think it makes sense considering how similar the games are. I think the gameplay is a little bit weaker in the sense that like there isn't as much to do in REANIMAL as there is in Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares definitely focuses more on the puzzle aspect, and I think it would have been cool for REANIMAL to focus on puzzles, especially with the fact that you can play multiplayer. But I guess maybe having a big puzzle focus with 2 people when there is the option to play it single player might have been like a problem, and maybe they had to like cut it down. Because like I've seen some people call this game like a walking simulator, which isn't, I wouldn't really say that. I do think that like having more puzzles and stuff and more stuff to do could be cool, but also I'm not really complaining, because I think just considering especially how short this experience is, just being thrown into this world by yourself or with a friend or whatever, and just they basically are just like, hey, go explore this world for like 3 or 4 hours and then you're done. I think just being given the pass to explore this world however you want to is kind of cool as well, because like I do like how open the game feels. Like, you have like the whole voting segments, and even the areas just feel a lot bigger, and like there's more to see. And like the game never bored me by any means. It just felt like that there was some areas of downtime, and that's why I think that having more dialogue could have been cool, especially on at times when you're on the boat, which I'm pretty sure is when they were supposed to talk more, where you kind of have this little bit of downtime where not much is happening, you're going between areas. But like there was never a moment where I wasn't like captivated by what was happening or what was going on or what I was seeing. Obviously, I think all of the monster designs are really good, but I do fear that they kind of peaked early with Sniffer being the first one, because he's by far my favorite, other than, you know, Big Willie at the end of the game. Willie is what we called the sheep. And like all of the designs are super sick. I know, I think about like the whale being just this complete long like snake-like thing, where I remember when we got to like the battleship area, I didn't actually know what the hell it was. It was just like, I knew it was something organic, but I didn't even know it was a whale until we saw the face, and I think that's pretty cool. And all of the designs are super dope, but I think Sniffer is just so cool because there's like a story there where I'm assuming it's an animal inside of like a human suit, because you have all of the like these empty human husks. Some of them are like alive. Well, I guess all of them are alive in some way, but some of them are like completely flattened out, like their insides have been taken out. And I'm assuming that Sniffer is like a skin suit that some kind of fucked up animal is wearing. I mean, like, cause especially whenever he chases you, he goes on like all fours, and he walks on like his ankle, his bent ankle, which I think is a super cool detail. And I think there's just like a really cool mystery behind the character, and there's a little story. Like whenever he takes one of your friends and he offers him like an ice cream, and he brings him to like the movie theater, and he's doing stuff in the theater, and it's like you don't really know what or why he's doing anything, and I think that's super cool. And it feels very reminiscent of Little Nightmares, where you have like these characters that are just like kind of doing shit, but you don't really get the context as for why. And like I personally didn't really feel that level of intrigue with the other characters. Like there was like the spider thing that was like cool, and it had like, I was very curious about the Ash children, but like I'm just saying, I'm afraid Sniffer's the goat. One thing that I think is just unfortunately bad about the game is the fact that it is so fucking short. And like what's there is good. What is there, I think, is of extremely high quality, and like obviously so much work goes into a game like this. But an average playthrough is probably like under 3 hours long. I think for us it took us like 5 hours because we were taking our time and dicking around and dying a lot. And there is DLC chapters on the way. I don't know how long those are gonna be, or I mean like God knows what they're even gonna be about. But just talking about like the base game, the fact that it's that short, and I guess I can kind of go into the story a little bit here. But I guess I won't get too specific with the story because there's probably a lot about it that I don't understand yet. I feel like with games like this, obviously, they're very ambiguous, and they're kind of supposed to not have a very definitive answer. But there is some stuff here that I think we could have elaborated on a little bit more. What I think is happening is that the kids have killed the girl, and what's happening in the game is the aftermath, and she gets like revived, and it's kind of like a time loop thing, which I thought was kind of predictable after Little Nightmares. It's kind of its thing too. And like with the length of the game, along with the ambiguous storyline, whenever the game ended, I was kind of just left feeling a little bit confused, because not only is the game already very short, I think the ending is incredibly abrupt and just like kind of out of nowhere. And I mean, since then, I read this incredible comment that kind of changed how I saw like what the game actually meant with the character of the girl. I think it was on like Jacksepticeye's playthrough of it. I'll put it on screen if I have it, or put it somewhere. But it was talking about how the girl is kind of like a metaphor for like puberty and like the loss of feminine innocence and stuff like that. It's a really cool comment that I really like, and I pretty much agree with it. I think it's a cool way to look at the game. But if there was genuinely just like a little bit more to the story, I don't even need to know specifically how anything works. I don't need to have any definitive answers, but if there was just like more in it, again, I know I keep talking about the dialogue thing, but if we just had these characters talking to each other more, I think the ending would have felt a lot more emotional, like meaningful, impactful, because when I think of Little Nightmares, the endings of both of those games, like they still hit me now, especially Little Nightmares 2. But when I finished Reanimal, I kind of was just like, huh. Okay. I mean, that just might be me. And obviously, I still think the game does an incredible job with what it is showing. I think, especially in the late game when you arrive in like the trenches for the first time, that whole section is so fucking cool. I think that might be one of the best moments in the entire game, is going into the trenches for the first time. I know, especially on our first playthrough, whenever you turn the corner and you see these two guys and you assume that they're gonna shoot you or kill you because, you know, that's just how the world is, and then they fucking point the guns to their heads and shoot themselves. It goes so crazy. But yeah, what was I talking about? Story it's gonna be something that I have to sit on. It's not gonna be something that I have a definitive answer on right now in this video. The game's like a week old, and you know, my opinions of the game are probably gonna change over time, and then the DLC is gonna change everything because that's gonna hopefully give more context for the world. And I'm very excited for the DLC because, you know, just you promised showing me just new parts of this world that you've created. I'm on board because like I love the world that they've made. One of my biggest problems with the game is that it's just so damn short. You don't see as much as maybe you would want to. And I mean, yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to say. This video is probably a little bit all over the place, especially towards the end when I was talking about story stuff. But Reanimal was a really good time. I'm really glad I played it. I'm really glad I played it with my girlfriend. I do think a second playthrough was kind of required for me to take it a little bit more seriously though, because like first time playing through in multiplayer, neither of us were taking it entirely seriously. Oh, actually, that's kind of a big thing I didn't mention. Sound design and the music is very good. I don't think the music is as memorable as the Little Nightmares ones. I know they had someone else do the soundtrack for this one, or maybe multiple someones, I'm actually not sure. But the music is really good still, and I saw a video on like the behind the scenes and stuff, and like how they made some of just like the sounds for the music, and I might link that in the description as well, because it's pretty fascinating. It's actually really cool, and the game has incredible soundtrack, and obviously the sound design is always honestly maybe some of the best parts of these games, and it's one of the best parts of this game as well. But yeah, I honestly would recommend Reanimal. It's a very fun time, and if you're into horror, I'm sure you'll love it. I know for some people maybe the price point that it's at is a bit much considering how much content's in the game. Maybe you could wait for a sale or something later down the line, but if that sale comes, I would absolutely recommend this game. It was really fun, and it was very fulfilling for me as well, as someone who always watched people play Little Nightmares. It was really fun just being like in an experience like this as it has come out. It was really fun, just like I didn't play it on launch day, I played it the day after, but like the energy was still there. But yeah, thank you for watching. Play Reanimal. Rest in peace, Big Oink.